She was mocked the moment she stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage, called a farm girl, rejected by judges, laughed off as a county fair nobody who dared to sing. They slammed the red X, jeered for her to leave, filmed her shame for the world to see. Nobody knew. The quiet woman in a wrinkled dress carried a voice forged in Vienna's Royal Conservatory. Until her song shattered the auditorium, humbled the judges, and crowned her the queen of the stage. The Las Vegas audition room for America's Got Talent was a crucible of ambition blazing under the cruel glare of studio lights that exposed every flaw and amplified every triumph. The air hummed with tension, thick with the scent of ambition and the buzz of anticipation, where the powerful, the glamorous, and the destined strutted onto the stage with rehearsed swagger, their couture outfits and polished attitudes a testament to their self-anointed stardom. Alara Moore, a 26-year-old from Kansas, stepped into this coliseum of dreams, a quiet figure in a wrinkled white linen dress, battered canvas shoes, and a limp, low ponytail, her presence swallowed by the vastness of the theater. She gripped the microphone like it was her lifeline, her voice trembling as she spoke. "My name is Alara. I want to sing a song for my mom, the only person who ever believed in me." The auditorium, packed with thousands of spectators, snickered at her unassuming frame, their murmurs, a mocking rhythm amplified by the cameras broadcasting to millions. The judges, Simon Sterling, the ice-blooded king of critiques, Vanessa Green, the queen of glam, and two others with decades of industry dominion, sat on their dais, their eyes sharp as scalpels. The stage, a polished expanse framed by golden curtains and digital screens, was a battleground for the elite where talent was measured in charisma and spectacle. Simon's tailored suit and Vanessa's diamond-encrusted gown stood in stark contrast to Alara's plain attire, their disdain palpable as they exchanged glances. The audience, a mix of industry insiders, influencers, and fans, sized Alara up with sneers, their smartphones raised to capture her inevitable failure. Alara's gaze, calm and unyielding despite her nerves, scanned the theater with the precision of a survivor, but her unassuming demeanor made her invisible to the elite who ruled the stage. As Alara stepped forward to face the judges, her hands nervously smoothing her wrinkled dress, a group of talent agents seated in the premium boxes, their silk ties and gold watches glinting under the theater's chandeliers, unleashed a barrage of mockery, their laughter a venomous shroud that silenced the auditorium's hum. A sleek-haired agent with a diamond-encrusted pen stood, his voice a sneering bellow that reverberated across the theater. "Well, look at this. Our very own Dust Bowl dreamer thinking she can charm our judges," he jeered, waving his pen like a conductor's baton. "That dress is so frumpy it's practically screaming hand-me-down, and those shoes, they're an insult to the stage's prestige. This is America's Got Talent, where we mint superstars, not where you come to drone for your mama. You're cheapening our show just by standing there looking like you've stumbled in from a prairie. Why don't you hightail it back to Kansas before you waste our scouts' time with your drab little act?" The agents roared some flicking business cards at the stage, their taunts a relentless barrage that echoed through the auditorium. A pop diva in a feathered headdress smirked her nod, fueling their cruelty as the cameras zoomed in on Alara's trembling fingers, framing them as proof of her inadequacy. Alara faced the judges, her posture rigid, her face a mask of stone, her silence a shield against their venom, but the weight of their scorn pressed like a physical force, the audience's rage surging at the orchestrated public shaming that targeted her poise and rural roots. The humiliation began the moment Alara opened her mouth as Simon Sterling, his eyes barely lifting from his scorecard, unleashed a sneer that cut through the auditorium's buzz. "Oh, look, a shy little farm girl from Kansas," he drawled, his voice dripping with venomous condescension that silenced the crowd's murmurs. "Let's just hope you won't put the audience to sleep with your whatever this is. That dress looks like it was pulled from a laundry hamper, and those shoes, they're screaming county fair reject. This is America's Got Talent, where we crown stars, not where you come to croak lullabies for your mom. Honestly, it's almost pathetic you thought you could stand on this stage. Why don't you scuttle back to your tractor before you bore us to death?" The audience erupted in laughter, their smartphones flashing as they recorded their jeers, a storm that humiliated Alara in front of millions. Simon pressed on his smirk a guillotine. "Look at you, no polish, no presence, like you're here to beg for a pity vote. Get ready to disappoint us." While Alara took a moment to compose herself before singing, a clique of social media influencers seated in the balcony, Their designer sunglasses and branded hoodies, exuding clout, began heckling her. Their laughter, a barbed wire fence that drew every eye in the auditorium. A tattooed influencer with a gold chain necklace leaned over the railing, his voice a mocking bellow that carried over the theater's hum. "Oh, honey, are you pausing to pray or just frozen in fear?" he sneered, waving his smartphone to record the jeers. "That ponytail's so limp it's practically screaming nobody. And that dress, it's an insult to this stage. This is America's Got Talent, where we make viral stars, not where you come to croak hymns for your farm. You're ruining our feed just by standing there looking like you've wandered in from a barn dance. Why don't you bolt back to Kansas before you tank our show with your dreary act?" The balcony roared some flicking glow sticks at the stage, their taunts a relentless barrage that echoed through the theater. A fashion vlogger in a first stole smirked her nod, fueling their cruelty as the cameras panned to Alara's trembling hands, framing them as evidence of her weakness. Across the auditorium, Vanessa Green, the queen of glam, escalated the cruelty, her voice a saccharine taunt that carried over the crowd's laughter. "Sweetheart, are you sure you're on the right stage?" she sneered, her diamond gown catching the lights as she leaned forward. "This is America's Got Talent, not the county fair karaoke tent where you belt out hymns for your cows. That ponytail's so limp it's practically begging for a comb, and that dress, it's an insult to this theater. We're here to discover superstars, not nobodies who think they can warble their way into our spotlight. You're lowering the vibe just by breathing our air, darling. Why don't you take your sad little act back to Kansas before you ruin our show with your farm girl dreariness?" The audience roared, their cheers a tidal wave, some tossing crumpled napkins at the stage, their laughter a storm that humiliated Alara in front of the judges. Before Alara could begin her performance, as she stood center stage awaiting the music cue, a group of music festival promoters in the mezzanine, their branded lanyards and neon wristbands exuding industry clout, began jeering their laughter, a barbed wire fence that drew every eye in the theater. A sunburned promoter with a gold chain earring leaned forward, his voice a mocking bellow that carried over the crowd's snickers. "What's this, a hick songbird thinking she can headline our stage?" he sneered, waving his festival pass like a flag. "That ponytail's so wilted it's practically screaming loser, and that dress. It's an insult to Vegas's shine. This is America's Got Talent, where we launch global acts, not where you come to chirp for your farmyard. You're tanking our show just by standing there looking like you've wandered in from a tractor pull. Why don't you scamper back to your nowhere town before you ruin our lineup with your twangy whimper?" The promoters roared, some tossing plastic cups at the stage, their taunts a relentless barrage that echoed through the auditorium. A reality show producer in a satin blazer smirked his nod, fueling their cruelty as the cameras panned to Alara's canvas shoes, framing them as evidence of her failure. Alara stood awaiting her cue, her face impassive, her silence a fortress against their venom, the audience's fury erupting at the coordinated public assault that targeted her readiness and worth. As Alara attempted to introduce her song choice, a group of industry executives in the orchestra seats, their tailored suits and gold cufflinks flashing under the lights, interrupted her, their laughter a venomous chorus that silenced the auditorium's buzz. A silver-haired executive with a platinum watch stepped forward, his voice a sneering bellow that carried over the crowd's snickers. "What's this, a nobody thinking she can serenade our theater?" he mocked, waving his program like a scepter. "Those shoes are so battered they're practically screaming charity case. And that dress, it's an insult to Vegas's prestige. This is America's Got Talent, where we discover icons, not where you come to mumble for your mom. You're tarnishing our stage just by holding that mic, darling. Why don't you crawl back to your nowhere town before you waste our time with your pitiful notes?" The executives roared, some tossing ticket stubs at the stage, their taunts a relentless barrage that echoed through the theater. A talent scout in a silk scarf smirked her nod, fueling their cruelty as the cameras zoomed in on Alara's limp ponytail, framing it as proof of her failure. The assault intensified as Alara's first trembling notes escaped her lips, delicate and fragile, cracking under the weight of the room's cruelty. The audience erupted in laughter, their jeers a storm that drowned her voice, their smartphones raised to capture her failure. Simon slammed the giant red X, the buzzer's harsh blare cutting through the theater like a guillotine, his face twisted in disgust. "Next to," he barked, not even waiting 5 seconds, his voice a whip that lashed at Alara's resolve. Vanessa followed, her hand heavy on her buzzer, her sneer a beacon of disdain. "Girl, just leave the stage," she scoffed. her gown glittering as she waved dismissively. The other judges pressed their X's, their faces a mask of contempt, their voices a chorus of rejection. Where's the next act? At least give us someone entertaining. One shouted, the audience's laughter swelling into a tidal wave that humiliated Alara in front of millions. When Alara's first notes cracked, a group of aspiring pop stars in the side aisles, their glittery costumes and bold makeup exuding stage-ready confidence, seized the moment to mock her, their laughter a venomous net that silenced the theater's hum. A neon-haired pop star with a sapphire-encrusted choker stepped forward, her voice a sneering lilt that carried over the crowd's jeers. "Oh, sweetie, are you singing or just choking on stage fright?" she mocked, waving her bedazzled microphone like a wand. "That dress is so drab it's practically screaming wallflower, but and those shoes? They're an insult to this auditorium. This is America's Got Talent, where we dazzle the world. Not where you come to crack notes for your mom. You're ruining our show just by standing there looking like you've wandered in from a church choir. Why don't you dash back to Kansas before you tank our night with your shaky voice?" The pop stars roared, some tossing confetti at the stage, their taunts a relentless barrage that echoed through the theater. A music producer in a leather jacket smirked his nod, fueling their cruelty as the camera zoomed in on Alara's trembling lips, framing them as evidence of her collapse. As Alara tried to regain her composure after the buzzers, a group of celebrity stylists seated in the front orchestra, their tailored vests and gemstone rings flashing under the lights, seized the opportunity to mock her, their laughter, a venomous net that silenced the theater's roar. A platinum blonde stylist with a ruby-encrusted bracelet stood, her voice a sneering lilt that carried over the crowd's jeers. "Oh, darling, are you singing or just gasping for air?" she mocked, waving her designer clutch like a scepter. "That dress is so dowdy it's practically screaming thrift shop. And those shoes, they're an insult to this stage's elegance. This is America's Got Talent, where we craft icons, not where you come to falter for your mom. You're spoiling our show just by standing there looking like you've wandered in from a flea market. Why don't you bolt back to Kansas before you wreck our night with your quivering voice?" The stylists roared, some tossing glitter at the stage, their taunts a relentless barrage that echoed through the auditorium. A talent manager in a velvet suit smirked his nod, fueling their cruelty, as the camera zoomed in on Alara's trembling posture, framing it as evidence of her collapse. The audience's cruelty peaked as a group of influencers in the front rows began chanting, "Farm girl, go home," their voices a venomous chorus that echoed through the auditorium. A TikTok star, his sequined jacket flashing, stood to address the crowd, his voice booming over the jeers. "This is what happens when you let small-town nobodies onto our stage," he sneered, his smartphone raised to live stream the mockery. "That dress is so sad it's practically begging for a Goodwill drop-off, and those shoes, they're screaming, barnyard." This is America's Got Talent, where we crown icons, not where you come to croak for your mommy. You're ruining our show just by standing there looking like you've wandered in from a cornfield. Why don't you take your pathetic act back to Kansas before you bore us all to death? The crowd roared their cheers, a storm that humiliated Alara in front of the judges, some tossing popcorn at the stage. The cameras captured every moment, the hashtags "How'd Farmgirl Flop" and "How'd Alara Fail" trending within minutes, each post a dagger aimed at her heart. But Alara didn't leave. She didn't flinch. She closed her eyes, took a breath so deep it seemed to pull the oxygen out of the room, and unleashed a voice so powerful, so raw, so terrifyingly majestic, like thunder ripping through marble, with the opening lines of Nessun Dorma. Not a whisper, not a lullaby. A roar of defiance that shattered the auditorium's scorn. The laughter died, replaced by a stunned silence. Chests clutched, eyes widened as her voice soared, each note a blade that carved through the theater's arrogance. As Alara's Nessun Dorma reached its soaring climax, the auditorium became a cathedral of awe. Her voice, a radiant force that pierced the studio lights, each note a testament to her unparalleled mastery. The head judge, Simon Sterling. His earlier scorn, now a distant memory, stood trembling, tears streaming down his face as he clutched the dais, his voice a broken whisper. "Alara Moore, your voice is not just talent. It's a divine gift that has humbled us all." He declared his words, a thunderclap that silenced the lingering jeers. The cameras captured Alara's unassuming ponytail, now a crown of vocal royalty, her linen dress a badge of triumph that outshone the judges' couture. The audience's satisfaction soared, their rage at the initial rejection transformed into euphoria at Simon's capitulation, each tear a blow to the antagonist's pride. Vanessa Green, her glam facade shattered, sat frozen, her earlier sneer a fading echo, her hands clasped in shame. The influencers who'd mocked her stood silent, their smartphones abandoned, their social media clout buried under Ilara's brilliance. The press scribbled furiously, their headlines framing Ilara as the silent soprano, her voice a legend that outshone their cruelty. The theater's screens, once flashing red X's, now displayed her radiant presence, each note a testament to her enduring dignity, the air thick with the weight of her victory and their disgrace. Vanessa Green, her earlier disdain now a damning relic, rose from her seat, her voice trembling with reverence as she addressed the theater, her words a guillotine that severed the last vestiges of the audience's scorn. Ilara Moore, your Nessun Dorma is a masterpiece that has rewritten the rules of this stage, she declared, her diamond gown dull under the lights, her eyes fixed on Ilara's canvas shoes, now symbols of triumph. We were wrong. You are the star we never deserved. The cameras zoomed in on Ilara's serene expression, her voice still echoing in the auditorium, each note a rebuke to Vanessa's earlier taunts. The audience's hearts pounded with pride, their fury at the judge's cruelty eclipsed by Vanessa's public apology, each word a nail in the coffin of the antagonist's arrogance. The reality TV stars who'd jeered stood trembling, their social media feeds flooded with condemnation, their #FarmGirlFlop hashtags replaced by #Ilara the Queen. The press captured every moment, their reports framing Ilara as a vocal titan, her performance a beacon that outshone their betrayal, the air thick with the scent of her redemption and their disgrace. The ultimate blow came from the VIP rows, where the legendary director of the Metropolitan Opera rose, his presence a storm that silenced the theater, his voice thundering across the stunned hall. Ilara Moore, my finest protégé, he declared, his eyes fixed on her unassuming ponytail, now a crown of quiet genius. She won a full scholarship to Vienna's Royal Conservatory, but due to family hardship, she never once graced a television stage. And you dared press X. The crowd gasped, the judges frozen, their faces pale as the director's words exposed their folly. As the second judge, a vocal coach to international divas, stepped forward, her voice a solemn vow that echoed through the theater, her words a final guillotine that severed the last vestiges of the critics' scorn. Ilara Moore, your voice has not only won this audition, but has inspired a new standard for vocal artistry, she declared, her eyes fixed on Ilara's battered shoes, now symbols of triumph. We dedicate this season to your mother's belief in you. The cameras captured Ilara's quiet nod, her ponytail a crown of vocal royalty, her performance a monument to her resilience. The audience's satisfaction soared, their fury at the cruelty transformed into pride at the judge's tribute, each word a blow to the antagonist's legacy. The theater critics who'd tossed notes stood trembling, their reviews, now irrelevant, their Ilara fail hashtags replaced by the girl who made Simon cry. The judges, their faces ashen, rose to their feet, their hands over their hearts, tears streaming as Ilara's final note hung in the air, a celestial force that humbled the entire theater. The producers, sensing history, rushed forward with the golden buzzer, its golden confetti raining down as Ilara was catapulted to the finals, the auditorium erupting in a standing ovation that shook the rafters. The third judge, a music industry legend whose ear had shaped global stars, stood slowly, his voice a resonant decree that froze the auditorium, his eyes locking on Ilara's trembling hands, now revered as instruments of vocal genius. In my 40 years, I have never heard a voice that carries such raw power and soul, he declared, his words a thunderclap that obliterated the lingering smugness of the crowd. Ilara Moore, your Nessun Dorma, is a legacy that will echo in theaters for centuries. The cameras panned to Ilara's linen dress, a badge of her triumph, her performance, a silent rebuke to the buzzers that sought to silence her. The audience's satisfaction soared, their rage at the cruelty transformed into awe at the judge's reverence, each accolade a blow to the antagonist's pride. The pop stars who'd tossed confetti stood silent, their glittery costumes now relics of their failure, their careers buried under Ilara's brilliance. As Alara's Nessun Dorma reached its breathtaking peak, the auditorium transformed into a sanctuary of reverence. Her voice, a celestial torrent that cascaded through the studio lights, each note a monument to her unparalleled artistry. The fourth judge, a renowned composer whose scores had defined Broadway, stood with tears in his eyes, his voice a resonant proclamation that stilled the theater's lingering echoes. Alara Moore, your voice is a revelation, a force that transcends this stage and touches the divine. He declared his words a thunderclap that obliterated the remnants of the audience's scorn. The cameras captured Alara's serene gaze, her linen dress now a mantle of vocal sovereignty, her performance a defiant rebuke to the red X's that sought to silence her. The audience's satisfaction soared, their fury at the initial cruelty eclipsed by the judge's awe, each accolade a blow to the antagonist's pride. The industry executives who'd tossed ticket stubs stood trembling, their influence now irrelevant, their had farm girl flop hashtags buried under Alara's brilliance. The press broadcast the moment, framing Alara as the silent soprano, her talent a beacon that outshone their betrayal, the air thick with the scent of her redemption and their disgrace. Outside the theater, as Alara prepared to leave, a crowd of fans, music executives, and media gathered under Las Vegas's neon glow, their eyes wide with awe, their chants of silent soprano echoing through the night. The head judge followed her, his voice a resonant proclamation that silenced the city's hum, his words a final blow to the antagonist's pride. Alara Moore, your Nessun Dorma has not only redefined this stage, but has inspired a global movement to honor the unseen. He declared, his eyes fixed on her linen dress, now a symbol of triumph. Your voice will open the next season of America's Got Talent. The cameras captured Alara's serene smile, her canvas shoes a badge of her victory, her performance a legend that would outlive the theater. The audience's satisfaction soared, their rage at the cruelty transformed into pride at the judge's historic pledge, each word a nail in the coffin of the antagonist's legacy. The reality TV stars and influencers, their social media accounts now silent, stood trembling in the shadows, their hashtag #FarmGirlFlop hashtags buried under Alara's brilliance. Simon, his voice barely audible, stammered, "I've never been so wrong. Alara, you've redefined talent." The head judge, Simon Sterling, now visibly shaken, addressed the theater once more. His voice a solemn vow that echoed through the auditorium, his earlier arrogance a fading shadow under Alara's vocal reign. Alara Moore, your Nessun Dorma has not only redeemed this stage, but has set a new benchmark for what talent means. He declared, his eyes fixed on her battered shoes, now emblems of triumph. We humbly invite you to perform at the AGT season finale as our honored guest. The camera zoomed in on Alara's quiet strength, her ponytail a crown of vocal majesty, her performance a monument to her mother's faith. The audience's satisfaction soared, their fury at the judge's dismissal transformed into pride at Simon's unprecedented invitation, each word a nail in the coffin of the antagonist's legacy. The pop stars who'd mocked her vocal cracks stood silent, their glittery costumes now relics of their failure, their careers buried under Alara's brilliance. Alara stepped toward the panel, her expression cold, regal, unbothered by their earlier disdain, her voice soft but resonant, each syllable a guillotine. "Never judge a simple woman because she walks quietly onto your stage," she said, her eyes locking on Simon's trembling frame. "Because when she sings, all of America will kneel to listen." As the standing ovation swelled, the third judge, a music industry titan, stepped forward, his voice a resonant decree that silenced the theater, his eyes locking on Alara's trembling hands, now revered as conduits of vocal divinity. "Alara Moore, your voice is a gift that will inspire generations, a beacon for every dreamer silenced by doubt." He declared, his words a thunderclap that shattered the last vestiges of the critics' scorn. "We will establish a scholarship in your name to nurture talents like yours." The cameras captured Alara's serene nod, her canvas shoes a badge of her victory, her performance a legend that would outlive the stage. The audience's satisfaction soared, their fury at the cruelty transformed into pride at the judge's historic pledge, each word a blow to the antagonist's legacy. The theater critics and influencers, their #Alara fail hashtags now buried, stood trembling, their influence erased by Alara's brilliance. Alara's triumph was seismic. her voice a legend that reverberated beyond the auditorium, reshaping the narrative of America's Got Talent. The press uncovered her past, a prodigy who'd trained in Vienna but returned to Kansas to care for her ailing mother, her talent hidden in the shadows of hardship. They called her the silent soprano, her linen dress and canvas shoes now symbols of untouchable authority. Other performers sent her invitations begging for duets, but she declined, her silence as powerful as her voice. The audience who'd jeered her were left to grapple with their shame, their status erased, their clout a fading echo. Ilara's victory wasn't just a buzzer, it was a lesson etched into the show's history, a reminder that the simplest woman could wield the deadliest talent, the audience's hearts pounding with pride. America's Got Talent's culture of elitism crumbled. New producers demanded authenticity, their respect for Ilara absolute, their eyes on the stage where she'd redefined power. The theater's lights, once a backdrop for privilege, now reflected its failure. The memory of Ilara's Nessun Dorma, a shadow over every audition. Simon and Vanessa faced a social media storm, their apologies trending alongside Ilara's triumph, their credibility a relic of their downfall. The blacklisted influencers were shunned, their accounts suspended, their status erased. Ilara's empire grew, her finals performance, a beacon for every underdog who'd been laughed off a stage, the audience cheering her triumph as a testament to true strength. In the weeks that followed, Ilara's name became a mantra in theaters worldwide, her story a cautionary tale for every smug critic. The audience who'd chanted for her ejection were ostracized, their reputations tarnished, their influence meaningless against her reach. The show's ratings soared, its sponsors clamoring to align with Ilara's legacy, its format retooled to honor talent over spectacle. Ilara was spotted at a charity concert, her linen dress understated her presence, a quiet storm that commanded every hall. She didn't need their lights, their buzzers, or their approval. She'd come to sing, and they'd failed, their arrogance crushed in 9 seconds. The silent soprano had no need for their world, she'd already conquered it. The audience screaming her name, their satisfaction, a roar that echoed beyond the stage. Ilara didn't need their approval. She didn't need their pity. She walked onto their stage as an invisible woman. She left as the queen they never saw coming. Want more stories where the underdog devours the stage? Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Because next time, it might be your crown she takes.